Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and I have a chemistry demonstration to share with you. We are using this book by Live Education. It is a Waldorf curriculum and we're going to be working on a chemistry demonstration today. So we're working on the demonstration for chemical process in a candle, and there are several demonstrations under this particular topic, and we previously read the story of Prometheus, the bringer of fire, and we're going to continue with our Greek mythologies with this book, and we're going to continue as part of our opening activities for this lesson, since we've previously already done our Greek main lesson block, but we are happy to revisit some of these stories as they relate to these demonstrations, and you could certainly use other mythologies, stories to present in advance of doing your demonstration. So we're going to continue with our demonstrations, and this one is actually a really fun one to do, where you can see fire literally jump from the flame to a candle that has already been burned out. So to do this, the book recommends that you use paraffin wax candles. And so the materials that I have for this are what I hope is a paraffin wax candle. This is a tea light. The paraffin wax candle that I made for these projects didn't burn very well. The interior of the candle has a big hollow hole in it, so it's not burning well, but this was the candle that I had originally made for this project. And I do also have a beeswax candle as well. We're going to be putting our work into a main lesson book. These measure 9.5 inches by 12 inches, and these pages are blank pages on both sides, and they are separated by an onion skin. Typically, these main lesson books are used for the younger grades, not typically for middle school. Usually a smaller format with lined pages is included for middle school, but I still like the larger format, so we are continuing to use the larger format. And my daughter draws in her own lines so that she can write her main lesson work on lines, and I do a demonstration without the lines. Okay, so we're going to begin by lighting our candles. So I have one here that's been burning a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and light this one here. And this one here. Let's try the beeswax first. So first we're going to light it and then blow it out. Blow out the candle, keep this lit. We're unable to get the flame to light based on the smoke. So we're gonna try it again using the paraffin wax candle. Okay, let's light our match. Blow out this candle. Nope, neither of them worked. Let's try this one. This is really sad. Okay, let's light our candles. let's try that again. Now it's time to do our written work for this demonstration in our main lesson book. We want to do this 1 to 2 days after the demonstration so that the student has time to process the phenomenon, and then we can revisit the demonstration by talking about it, doing our review of the phenomenon, and then finally doing our illustration and our written work. I have our Lyra color pencils, and we're going to do a simple drawing of a candle, and we're going to do a simple narration. Now, typically, I will do this before my daughter does her illustration and her narration. I find that this is a good time for me to do the illustration so that then she can copy the illustration from the main lesson book or from the chalkboard, rather than us working at the same time. This gives her a great example to follow, and I found that it has worked out better for me to have this done before she does this in her main lesson book, and it's a little bit easier that I have an example for her rather than her trying to think up of an illustration or do an illustration from scratch, as she hasn't had as much experience in doing this as I have. And typically in a classroom setting, there would be a chalkboard or something to look at in order to do the illustration. So I'm doing a candle that's on a pedestal. This is not the candle that we used. It looks a little bit more beautiful, and that's why I'm choosing this one. And then the written portion for this lesson is going to be something that I write up that she can refer to. But again, I'd prefer for her to do her own written narration by processing the demonstration, talking about the review, and then using her own words to describe the phenomenon. What I have found that it's really helpful for me to do is to write up a narration so she can get an idea of what I'm actually looking for, or just an example of what it might look like to do a narration for a chemistry demonstration. I found that with our chemistry demonstrations and our physics demonstrations, my daughter needed a lot more guidance for the main lesson book work versus some of our other main lesson blocks, which were a lot easier to do. Our other sciences and our histories are a lot more straightforward. It's a little bit easier to do the narration, but when you're trying to process a phenomenon and trying to articulate that does take a little bit more practice, and having something written down in advance of her writing it down, but after we've discussed it, has seemed to really help her process the information and then find her own words to describe the lesson. So we did have a little trouble getting the project to actually work properly. And before I actually did the demonstration, I practiced several times and it worked every time. But as you saw, there were a few tries where the candle just wouldn't light. So here's a look at our final lesson with our illustration and our written work. I really like the way this turned out. I like how simple it is and yet really informative. I hope that you enjoyed this look at our chemistry lesson and demonstration. Don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video. You can find more tutorials as well as all of the resources we used for this chemistry main lesson block. You can find the link to that blog post in the description box below. And if you'd like to see how we're homeschooling on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram and now on TikTok at Pepper and Pine.